Welcome back in, everybody. It's episode 20 of Pit and Corey's Drilling Deeper podcast. Today we're going to talk about manufacturers, dealers, and how they ultimately come together to form partnerships. But first, let's hear from our fearless managing editor on Pit and Corey, Jack Kapansky. Jack, how are you, man?
Believe it or not, I'm full of fear, but I'm here. And I'm excited. I'm ready to go, Kevin. Like you said, we're going to hear from our sponsors real quick. Thank you first and foremost to our show sponsor, TCI Manufacturing. Celebrating 25 years of excellence in 2025, TCI Manufacturing embodies the promise of concepts to reality as the industry's leading aggregate resource. TCI specializes in precision-engineered, custom-fabricated steel products, committed to delivering top quality, strength, and precision in every project. Learn more at www.tcimfg.com. Thank you also to the sponsor of this episode, Syntron Material Handling. With more than 140 years of bulk material handling experience, Syntron Material Handling is a recognized industry leader that provides innovative engineering solutions, high-performance products, and superior customer service. Syntron offers solutions in conveying, feeding, screening, elevating, vibratory flow aids, and mining controls of bulk products. For more information, visit syntronmh.com. Thank you to TCI and Syntron. Kevin,
Yes.
how's it going, man?
It's going well. We're back at it. It's cold today in Cleveland.
Very cold.
In July. It is more like Christmas than Christmas in July in the corner office here of the 10th floor of the IMG building. But we're back at it. We're in our 20th episode. It's been a fun ride. Almost got a full calendar year's worth of drilling deeper in the hopper now, and it's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah. You know, someone was asking the other day, man, how long have you been doing this for now? And I told him, man, we started it in November, and thinking about how, you know, we're only a few months away from November, away from our 1 year anniversary here, and it's been a fun ride so far. It's been interesting, sort of learning a bit more about what we're doing and how we're doing it, talking to a lot of great people. So time's flying.
Yeah, and we talked to a couple people that you're going to hear from in a bit on this episode 20 of Drilling Deeper. As you've heard in episode 18 and 19 prior to this one, we're very dealer focused in our coverage this month. July traditionally is Pit and Corey's dealer issue month. So in the magazine, in the pages of Pit and Corey, you typically will see some stories that have dealer focuses on them. This month I wrote a few stories related to dealers. One was about the mega dealer, and I talked to some dealers, including Kimball Equipment CEO Kirk Rainbolt, who we heard from in episode 18, talking about how dealers are getting much larger in size, and it's a trend that we're going to be keeping an eye on. We see producers getting large, and dealers are too. So, if you haven't heard that episode, that's episode 18, and you can also read about it in the magazine's July edition. And we also heard on episode 19 from another dealer. That was Chris Barron of Goodfellow Corporation. Goodfellow's been a good partner and friend to Pit and Corey over the last several years, and I know Chris we had on the show. You can read what Chris had to say in the pages of Pit and Corey as well, but he talked about their custom fabrication equipment business. And today we're going to hear from yet another dealer. It's going to be our last dealer-related episode for a while, probably, I suppose until next July's dealer issue comes around again, but we'd love to hear from dealers all the time as well. But we're going to talk to Matt Dibble of Dibble Equipment. Matt's company, it's a family business in the Northeast New England region. They recently partnered with Major Wire. Major's a screen media manufacturer, and they came together at the very start of this year with a formal partnership whereby Dibble Equipment now represents Major as a screen media vendor. It's a category that Dibble Equipment hadn't really dabbled in before, so it's new territory for Dibble. And Jack, at the magazine, you're regularly getting a lot of the press releases or announcements that come across, when a new dealer and a new manufacturer come together, work together to try to serve the market, to serve Ohio or to serve the Northwest. And now we have a case where we've got a brand new partnership with Dibble and Major, and we were actually at the Young Leaders meeting, and Major Wire's Ian Edwards came over during one of the receptions and said, I've got a great idea for a story that you guys could put together and publish in the magazine, just getting behind the scenes in terms of how a manufacturer and a dealer come together. And, we put out these press releases, these announcements all the time, like X manufacturer and Y dealer partner. But, in my 12 years on the magazine, we've never really gotten too deeply into, well, how do those relationships come together? How do they formulate? What's it like behind the scenes as as they're coming to terms or to the realization that they could be partners, or realizing that no, like we don't really have the values and the means to get together. So really, it was not much of a timeline for these companies coming together. And Ian and Matt were gracious enough to visit with me, after the initial meeting. But Jack, before we hear from these guys, you were there when Ian came to us down in San Antonio with this idea. Like, what were your impressions of this topic, this story, as it kind of came together for the magazine?
Yeah, no, it was definitely, like you said, something that I don't think we've really looked at a lot before. It's not something we necessarily hear super in depth when we get those press releases, when we get those announcements that certain companies are partnering, or when certain manufacturers are adding dealers to their roster. So I think that kind of stuck out right away, because I feel like this story does sort of a great job of showing a lot of, kind of like we said, what isn't seen. And I almost look at it as kind of like a dealer iceberg, where it's like we see sort of that end result. We see that little bit up top, which is, the company's announcing. And, in those press releases, the wording's often rather vague. And I think, sort of done intently, where, the quotes might be, you hear people saying, oh, they really align with our values. They really are a partner we want to have. They're going to help us grow as a company. And the dealer talks about, again, matching values and sort of those buzzwords. But being able to take a really look, to take a deeper look at kind of, that sort of, again, iceberg metaphor of what's under the water, how much really goes into what we actually see, is, I think, a really valuable story to tell. And I hope is something that our readers enjoy reading, and you guys enjoy listening to here today, because it's just not something that I think is necessarily talked a lot about. So it was cool that you were able to get this perspective. And I know when I was down at Young Leaders with you, and when, like you said, we talked to Ian, he gave us a little bit of insight into it, and sounded like it was a great story, and it certainly turned out to be one. So looking forward to hearing this interview.
Let's hear directly from the sources of this story themselves. Matt Dibble. Matt's the second generation of his family-owned company, and Ian Edwards with Major. He's the vice president responsible for global sales. So here's Matt and Ian.
Ian, you're obviously the one who kind of put this idea out there at the Young Leaders meeting, and I thought it was interesting because I see press releases come across my email all the time, like X manufacturer, Y dealer, partner. And I've never really gotten into the how those companies come together. So for your story idea, that you put out there, I think this is a really good opportunity for Fit and Corey to kind of do a case study on how you guys came together. And it sounds like there's kind of an interesting origin with the young leaders, and really eager to kind of hear how this particular case came together for you two, for the two companies, and how did this journey for the two ultimately kind of meet the standard of a manufacturer and the standard for, Dibble on the dealer side coming together. So maybe let's start with, this particular partnership. Ian, Matt, take me back to how you guys met and where this started.
Yeah, and sorry, Matt, I kind of, you weren't there, but we were at NSSGA, and I was talking to Kevin. We started talking about like dealers, and we were talking about you. Somehow it came up, and I was like, oh, what's really cool is this actually fostered from Young Leaders. Like it really did. And that's, and Kevin, like, to start it, because it was, if you will, that's how it started, is Major Wire was looking to bring in a new dealer into the New York, New Jersey area. Very big market. We have a partner down there named Birch Materials, but again, they cover a variety of states. It's a very, very big area, and we wanted to bring in someone new. And we had done some historical work, Major Wire on the business development side, to go and look, what dealers are out there? What dealers are in that area? What are our options? What do those dealers do? Who do they represent? Do they represent any parties that we already work with? Because that gives you an idea of, hey, I'll use Deister as an example, who Matt works very close with. We do a lot with Deister, and we have a relationship with Deister. So, well, if we like Deister and we like the way they handle business, they're obviously dealing with someone who fits their criteria, and that dealer, Deister, meets their criteria. So you start to build like this little cocoon, if you will, of who's all thinking in the same way, and who likes the same parameters they're working in. They obviously trust each other. They're good people. And that's what kind of led us to breaking down our dealer list to say, like, okay, here's 3 or 4 dealers who kind of meet the criteria at a top level that we think we would be interested in engaging with. Dibble was one of those companies on that list. Okay.
Mhm.
And then we just so happened to subsequently go to NSSGA Young Leaders that year, and I met Matt, and it was like, oh, I'm Matt Dibble, and I was like, Dibble, 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 Dibble. Why is that like Dibble equipment, Dibble equipment? And then we got along. We started talking at like a random NSSGA dinner. I think we had run into each other at lunch as well, maybe the day
Yeah.
prior, but we didn't really get a chance to talk. I
Yep.
got to meet your wife,
Yep.
and that's kind of like at very short, and I'll let Matt jump in, but at very short from my perspective, like that's how it started. Like I
Yeah.
left that leadership meeting and went back to Major to my boss Bernard and said like, hey, I just met Matt Dibble. Like I really like sorry Matt, you're here, but I really like the guy. Like I really felt we got along. Like we were talking the same language. Like this might be the person we need to get engaged with, and that's what kind
Yeah.
of started the ball rolling.
Yeah, it was love at first sight, Kevin. We just, yeah. No, but that's really how it started. And
Yeah.
and obviously from our side of things, um, you know, when we represent a company, that's an extension of us to our customers. So the things that we look for are obviously quality equipment, but you have to go beyond that. You have to have people behind the product that really know and understand the product and want to service their customers and help dealers. We're all about long-term business. So it's all about taking care of your customer, doing the right thing, building long-term relationships with your customers and long-term business. And when we sat down with Ian and Bernard, it was like they were completely aligned with the same way that we think. Taking care of customers, providing a quality product that you believe in and can stand behind, and just doing business the right way. So like right away when we met, obviously me and Ian met at Young Leaders and it was awesome. It's the same thing. I liked Ian, we get along. You kind of get a sense of like, yeah, this is a guy that one, like on a personal level, but two, like the way that he thinks about business and conducts business. So it's kind of, we fit right off the bat. And then you take it to the next step and you start to have more sort of business and relationship discussions. And it's like everything that were saying is like the exact way that we think and that we operate. So it was a great fit right from the beginning, all the way from the first introduction to Ian, all the way through meeting more people at Major. We love everybody. Everybody that we've met there so far are great people.
Yeah.
Matt, was Dibble Equipment actively looking for a major wire? No, we weren't. So we weren't. So we obviously were a Deister dealer. It's a huge part of our business and what we do. What we've never had or really actively pursued a media line. So we weren't, but we knew the name Major, and it just kind of fit. It was a great fit. Sometimes even when you're not looking for things in business, when an opportunity presents itself to you, you say, you know what, this is a great chance to do it. Especially it helps when you trust the people and really like the people that you're going to take this step with. It all kind of makes sense. And, some of Major's other dealer networks around the country are companies that we like and respect. And it's like, all right, the same way that Ian's looking at the companies that we represent and say, okay, we like the way that those guys operate. If their dealers are probably within the same line of thinking, they probably work for us too. We do the same thing with other dealers. So when you see dealers that you like and respect, the companies that they represent, it's kind of like the same kind of parallel that you make. So,
yeah. And I would just add to that, the inverse of that to our side, Kevin, when we're looking at dealers, most times we are looking to a dealer that has some form of screen media knowledge, like they sell it or they sold a competitive product and they dropped them and they want to move to something else, because that kind of is a quicker, easier boots on the ground to get running, right? But at the same time, it goes back to what Matt and I are talking about. More important to Bernard and I was, do we align with the group of individuals that we want to work with? And who cares what they did or didn't do before? If we believe in what we do and we believe in our team, to use a guy as an example is Serge Raymond, who's our product specialist, we can be there. We can be boots on the ground. And that's our model. Our model isn't like, okay, you sell our stuff now, best of luck, go sell our product. That's not what we do. We want to be involved. We want to help the growth be like, we believe in the word partnership. When we say we're in a partnership, it's because I don't just want Major to grow. I want Dibble Equipment to grow. I want Pascal and Associates to grow. We want the whole network to grow. So we are really engaged. We got Serge down there right away. We got training in place. We hired a new territory manager. Okay, Chris, get down there, be with them, be boots on the ground. We're very much involved in the process. So although the model is usually, okay, who already knows how to do this because it's a quicker return, we're not playing the quick game. We're playing the long-term game. So again, it's more important to us to work with the right people than just to have a quick fix. So, you know, it's the inverse of what, Matt didn't do it and he's looking at it going, oh, we've never sold anyone. Our model was, we don't care. That's not what we're looking at. We trust what we see and what we hear and that it's aligned. We'll go through that training process and we'll do it together, which will only make the two companies even tighter. So we go to market in that sense.
You guys maybe walk me through the timeline a little bit. Do you remember which particular young leaders meeting it was for NSSGA? And then it sounds like there was a meeting at an office or somewhere after the fact. I mean, how much time basically does it take to go from A to Z to sign on the dotted line with each other?
So I think we met. It was last year. So 2023 young leaders in Florida.
Florida,
so that was May. And then I think you and Bernard were coming down. I don't know, I'm going to say a few months after that, maybe. We had dinner.
Yeah, I want to say it was like September-ish, maybe.
Okay. Yep.
Somewhere in that timeline, because we officially launched our relationship together as of January 1st, 2024, if you will.
Yep.
Like for this year. But to your point, Kevin, Matt and I met at Young Leaders. Then we had a first meeting. Bernard and I were down in the area for something else. We met with Matt and Rod for dinner, and then we had a subsequent meeting again where we went back and saw the new facility that Matt had put together. And so there were 2 or 3 meetings in there probably post the NSSGA Young Leaders.
In that time, essentially, Matt, you described it as love at first sight, but it's essentially kind of a dating period. I mean, when you're
it kind of is, and honestly, it is a little bit. I mean, it's like you throw the term relationship around, but it is kind of what it is. So it's like, I mean, you're meeting, and then I'm sure, when Ian and Bernard get back in the car, you're talking. It's like, and it's the same thing. It's kind of like, because at that early stage, you can kind of break things off, and say it's not you, it's me, and everybody moves on. Or so it is. I mean, it is kind of like that, because it is. My dad always says it's like a marriage. So it is, that's
but it
kind of how it is. It's like, it's not like you find a company and you represent them for a year or 2 years. It's like everything's, again, long-term business. So, and part of that relationship is working together, working back and forth, understanding when, I mean, we're obviously always in the middle, right, between customers and our manufacturers. So it's like we have a relationship with the customers, we have a relationship with our manufacturers. But it's always, I mean, a relationship is the best way to describe it, because that's really what it is. We have to do our thing out in the field. The manufacturers have to do their thing, and when everybody's doing what they need to do, everything's working great.
Yeah, I agree, and it really is it's like dating, right? I mean, Matt and I hit it off, and we get along well, but I mean, I can speak on behalf of me. I don't run Major Wire. Bernard runs Major Wire, right? So I have to go back to Dad, if you will. Hey, like, I think this is the right fit. And obviously Bernard's like, okay. And, he asked me a bunch of questions and I'm like, okay, well, here's the fit model. Here's the spec that I think, and here's what it fits. And we get along really well. And I think it would be a good partnership. And he's like, okay, let's go see them. So, I say dating, it's funny, like, then the parents meet, like, do they get along? Do they get along? Do they agree with both? Like you said, I get back in the car with Bernard, you get back in the car with Rod, and you leave. Does Rod agree with your assessment of me? Does Bernard agree with my assessment of you? Does the situation make sense to the both of them? Like, it really is that process. Like, you really go through that type of a system. So, it's unique. But
what would you say? What percentage of the companies that you're exploring work out, and what percentage do not? I mean, probably more work out than don't. Or is it just a mix?
Well, I think actually from Matt and I, this is probably where the differences lie, because it's or maybe not, I don't know, but it's very unique. Like, for my situation in Major Wire, we're pretty set up, if you will, in terms of our dealer network and the coverage that we have. So it's not like we're bringing on new dealers all the time. That's not something that's happening. We're not dropping dealers often. We really don't do that. We try to do, like, if a dealer is failing, we don't say, oh, our dealer is failing. We say we're failing. We failed. We have not given the dealer the tools or the support to make them be successful in the area they're in. That's not them, that's us. So very rarely do we let someone go. They would have to do something that's against what we've agreed upon for us to let them go. If anything, we would give them more support and dive in more and more and more to try and figure out how we make them successful. So we're not really doing that often. I would say that in the going on 6 years that I've been here at Major, I've brought on 3 dealers, and all 3 of them are still with us today. And I think that's because we really do our due diligence and our homework to make sure that we're engaging at that forefront with the right people. And then we trust our judgment, to Matt's point, within those first couple of meetings to say, like, before we get too involved, is this the right fit? And so far, knock on wood, we've been successful in doing that. So from our side, that's kind of the position we're in.
Yeah. No, and for us, it doesn't happen a ton. We brought on Major, I think the year before, we brought on Sherco Slurry. It's mostly long-term stuff. So things come up every now and then, but it's not, and we do get approached by people probably a couple times a year for different things. And most of the time right away, you say, oh, it's either not a fit, or I don't think we would really gel with those guys. But so it's not something like, every day you're out, or every week you're going and meeting with new people to see if, it's more like maybe a couple times a year something pops up. But when to get to that first sort of meeting, that doesn't happen very often. And normally when that does happen, things generally head the right direction, because, the industry is relatively small. So you kind of know the different companies and different players. So to even go to that first sort of meeting, you kind of have a good sense of whether this is going to work or not. So, it's not something that we're doing all the time, is like feeling out other companies or trying to bring on different people. It doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, the big one for us, Kevin, where we as a manufacturer get approached a lot is at shows like Egg One, for example. We get a lot of dealers showing up saying, hey, we want to rep your product. Either we want to drop the competitor that we're selling, which is your competitor. Would you take us on? We're selling their stuff because we can't get you, right? Because we already have an active dealer in that place. But again, I won't mention names or locations, but we had a dealer reach out to us in a state where we're looking to get a new dealer. And we met with that dealer at Ag One, and following that meeting, we discussed with a couple of our other partners who know that dealer. We discussed with Deister, for example, and a couple of other people in the industry that we're close with, and they told us, don't get involved. They're like, these are the types of things we've heard or we've been involved in ourselves. So to Matt's point, as much as this is a very large world, this industry is still very small, and you tend to stay within that confinement of the trust bubble you have, even though it's rather large within your dealer network or the OEMs that you work with. You stay within that because you trust them, because they're within your mindset and model. So it does happen where, to Matt, again, like Matt said, you don't even get to that first meeting or the second meeting because you're like, okay, no, everyone is telling me the same thing. I'm gonna keep my distance from them.
Yeah.
So the partnership's been about 5 months old at this point. What would you guys say about it at this stage? Ian, you kind of alluded to getting some training down there, getting them up to speed. It's kind of a new product for Dibble equipment, Matt. How's it been going halfway through the year?
For us, it's been great. So the first two people we met Ian and Bernard, which were great. Loved them. The third person met was Serge, who was awesome. So he came down and did training. We did a day and a half of training, 2 days of training, and then we went out and saw customers. And it was like it was another home run. It was just great. So really, really enjoyed Serge. He was great. He's basically the product specialist. He knows Major Wire and FlexMat inside and out and backwards, and really loves the product. So he could teach us about it. He could teach us how to promote certain things to customers. So it was great. So from our standpoint, everything that Ian said, this is what we're about, this is what we want to do, this is how we take care of our dealers, it's been to the T accurate, and it's been awesome. Some of the simple things when you're a dealer, like how fast do you turn quotes around? It sounds simple, but if a customer calls and want a quote on something, you can't wait days for quotes. Maria in their office turns around quotes in an hour. You know, it's like quick. It's like you send an email and you get a quote back. It's
And
awesome.
you're not sitting there waiting for the number, right?
And sometimes it's just the simple things, right? So that makes our life easier. And it also makes getting business easier. When you get a quote request, you can send back a quote within the same day or a couple hours. Makes things move along a lot smoother. So, and I will say, I don't know if their lead times are awesome. So that also, as a dealer, it's like, first thing you do is you get a quote, you look at the lead time, and then you look at the price. But their lead times are amazing, which makes your life easier as a dealer. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And from our side, Kevin, same boat. We're very, very happy. And I think that really goes again. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm tooting Matt and I's horn because we're the ones on the call with you. But unfortunately, sometimes that's what it is, right? I think Matt and I set expectations at the beginning of the year when we started the relationship as to what we both wanted out of year one. And I think when you do that and you agree upon those goals, there's way less room for disappointment, right? You understand what year one is. Hey, we've never sold screen media. Hey, we're aware. We need to come down. We need to be there. We need to be boots on the ground. We need to train your team. We need to make sure we have a local territory manager there to support you, which we didn't have at the time. So I had to hire that individual, which we've done. But I think setting the appropriate expectation puts everyone in the right headspace to, okay, what does year one look like? And we've really met every standard up to this point, 5 months in, as to what we wanted to accomplish in year one, right? Let's further our relationship. Let's make sure we get somebody down there. Let's make sure people are trained. And in doing that, we both feel like it's been successful. Year one isn't about a number. It's not about how well Dibble equipment does with major wire. It's not how well, major does from up. That's not what this is. Year one is how do we get closer? How do we make sure we understand each other? How do we both go to the market? How do major wire? What do we need to do to make sure we give you everything you need to be successful? That's really what year one is, right? Again, to use Matt's analogy, it's like when you move in with someone for the first year. It's not the same as when you dated, right? You learn so much more about people. So that's really what year one is. And I think because Matt and I set those expectations between each other and also with Bernard and Rod, everyone is very clear on what year one is. And I think that really helps.
Yeah. Well, guys, anything else you want to add about the partnership and what's ahead?
No, I think from my standpoint, it's like I really want to grow our business together. I think it's a great opportunity. So for me, like this spring, we call it startup season. So with the projects and new equipment that we sell over the winter, we're starting all that stuff up now. So we're at the tail end of that now. And then that kind of frees up some more of my time and more of our guys' time to really go hit the ground. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this summer and really being able to go and be a little bit freed up with some of the projects we've been working on this winter. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity for us. It's a great product line, and it's something that I'm proud and feel good about bringing to our customers. So it's really pretty simple.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing, Kevin. We're very excited about the future of our partnership. I think Matt and I are both very high expectation individuals, and we see a lot. And I guess I can say this because we all fit in the same age bracket, but we're young and we have big ideas of what we want the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years to look like. And I think we're excited to be able to do that, as a partnership together and foster a lot of growth for both of our organizations. So we're very excited about the future. The aggregate industry is a really cool industry. As much as people don't think it's sexy, you always hear that. It's not a sexy industry. I think it's how you look at it, because I actually think it is a very cool industry that people just don't know about that well. And Kevin, I'll be honest with you, this is not to toot your horn, but this is what I really like when you say like, hey, would you do a podcast? Hey, will you do? I do. I really like that, because I think more and more we do that type of stuff, that more of the younger generations are looking at and reviewing and seeing, the more aware they'll become of what we do. They drive on roads, they walk down sidewalks, they walk into their homes and their buildings, and they can't conceptualize actually how that gets from the beginning, meaning rocks in the ground, to actually them walking on it. So this type of informative types of displays that we're doing like this, I think is super advantageous. So that's why I'm very on board for that. So Again, I love this stuff. And Matt, sorry I dragged you in because you weren't there at NSSGA.
No,
I
it's
kind of
good.
spoke on your behalf, so I apologize.
No, it's totally fine, and I agree with you. I think all this stuff is really interesting, and like I think what you guys are doing. I was on the podcast down at the Ag One show in Nashville. I think all that stuff's awesome. Makes them, makes some of the conversations more accessible to people. So I think it's great. So
That's fun.
Oh, yeah,
It is fun.
yeah, it is. It is fun.
It's fun.
Well, that was Matt Dibble of Dibble Equipment and Ian Edwards of Major. Guys, thanks again for getting together. We heard from these two fellas earlier in the year on the podcast. Matt was on episode 14. He was one of a few guests. So if you want to hear more from Matt Dibble, go back into our Drilling Deeper archive and access episode 14. And both Matt and Ian were on episode 12, which was the episode where we kind of took our compilation of Ag One recaps and experiences from the Ag One Aggregates Academy and Expo down in Nashville this year. So good to hear from those guys again. Jack, we can kind of break down what we heard here until we, get to our, what else the magazine's working on in a few minutes. But one of the things that kind of struck me about Matt and Ian and their partnership was that it kind of mirrors what you see with hiring people or coming together with any partnership, I suppose. Somebody approaches the other one, and we heard all those dating and marriage analogies about taking this person home to dad or mom and getting their feedback. But it very much is kind of simplistic at the end of the day, and it's kind of a matter of just getting a feel and a vibe for somebody to start. And that's what these guys did, is they were getting to know each other in the year before they actually formalized this partnership, because again, they met at the Young Leaders meeting the year before, so 23, and I guess 8 or 9 months later, they essentially have this formalized partnership, whereby Dibble Equipment's representing their very first screen media manufacturer. So, but it really kind of comes down to these simplistic ideas. It's, do you like the person? Do you like what they represent? Do they stand for the things that your company stands for? And I think about it in our own world too. I mean, we want to hire people. We want to do business with partners that we trust and that we kind of basically like at the end of the day. And that's kind of why these guys came together, and why the leaders at the company came to the realization that they can ultimately do business together. There's something there.
Yeah, and I think that's why stories like this and hearing from both Matt and Ian is super valuable because like I was mentioning before the interview, you sort of hear these buzzwords of shared values or synergies or different ways that these companies sort of describe that we are a good fit to work with X company, or X company is a good fit to work with us. But I think sort of hearing it really laid out like this is that there really is a lot of trust that has to go into this, where these companies have put their heart, blood, sweat, tears, and soul into making whatever equipment they're manufacturing. They're not going to just give it to anyone and say, go ahead, sell this and service it. There has to be that level of, again, which I think I talked about back on episode 18, and I know you and I have had conversations about it since the story came out, but that dynamic that he talked about of it being like dating, of it being like a relationship, it's sort of that, you go on the first date, everyone's a little nervous, go out, sort of start getting a feel for each other, you start spending more time together, you get to know each other a lot more, you get more comfortable, and then eventually you get to a point where you say, listen, this is, this product I have here, or these products we have here are really important to us, and we trust you to essentially carry our company's best interest and do best by our company in selling and servicing this. Let's enter into this partnership over whatever region, over whatever states we cover. And it's cool seeing that, because you hear so many manufacturers talking about how much they just love their dealer network, how important that network is to them. So seeing the makings of one of those dealer partnerships, I think, is really cool, because we see so much on the other end. Now we kind of get to see a look behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's not that big of an industry, and I thought it was interesting. I can't remember if it was Matt or Ian specifically who kind of said something along these lines, but you kind of know the players and what their reputation are in the industry. So if you're a manufacturer, you have a sense of who the dealers are that are out there that you could work with. And so if you're in New York or New Jersey, I mean, you've got, a Dibble as an option, or somebody else as an option, and you kind of have a feel for who's essentially going to match up well with you. But you can't necessarily have conversations with everybody. Meetings like Young Leaders provide opportunities and platforms for for guys like Matt Dibble and Ian Edwards to get together and start to get the ball rolling, things in motion a little bit to understand if there's opportunity to enhance business and do a little bit more business. But it's interesting. You're not really going to engage, I would suppose, with somebody if their reputation is something that isn't really reputable, if on paper and the things you've been hearing from the market and from other friends and colleagues in the industry, if people are saying, bad things about a company, you're not necessarily going to want to get into a partnership with somebody. And so I suppose it does come down to values. Do your values align with the others, whether it's the manufacturer or the dealer? And we do see from time to time that there's turnover in dealer networks too. I think that's why those releases come across our desk semi-regularly, that somebody's maybe not living up to the partnership, or maybe the sales weren't necessarily being met, or there is a reason that came about that that the dealer and the manufacturer aren't doing business together, and that manufacturer is looking elsewhere. So there's a lot in that dynamic between the manufacturer and the dealer, and I again thought it was just a really great opportunity for me personally and for Pitt and Corey as a magazine to kind of just dive in to this major wire Dibble equipment one as a case study, as an example to understand how one comes together at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I guess just my final thoughts on it is that, because it is, again, the way Matt put it, because it is a relationship, there has to be sort of that give and take on both sides. And I think one of the things, Matt kind of wrapped the interview up with is that one of his goals is to grow the partnership together, where it's not just Major essentially using Dibble to grow themselves. It's not Dibble saying, oh, now we have Major stuff so that Dibble can grow. It's these two companies saying, we think we can sort of build off each other and have that mutual growth. So I think that again is why it takes some of that trust, and why, like you said, Kevin, you're not going to have XYZ company as a dealer just to do it. If they have a less than stellar track record, again, you don't want to trust them with something that is so important to your company, so important to the industry. So I think to find a partnership like these two have is very exciting. I'm looking forward to see how both Major and Dibble, grow after this partnership.
Yeah, it's something we'll keep an eye on for sure. Check in with those guys down the line. But again, thanks to Matt Dibble and Ian Edwards once again for sharing their story with Pitt and Corey. We appreciate that, guys. Well, what else is happening at the magazine? As mentioned and as heard on Drilling Deeper today and in recent weeks, we've been putting the focus on dealers. We're here at the end of July. This episode goes live July 30th, and we've had the dealer issue go out. So if you haven't yet flipped through your pages of the July issue, there's lots of dealer content there again. But Jack and I, we're always kind of working a little bit ahead at the magazine, and for us that means that our August issue is already out the door and at the printer, and it should be at your mailbox or in your inbox if you're a digital edition subscriber here, in the days and short weeks to come. So our August issue actually has a special focus on washing and classifying. We published a story based on a visit I did in recent months to Knife River's Scamardo plant. They've got some CDE wet processing equipment down there in the Texas area, and you can read about that in the pages of our August edition, showcasing some of the latest equipment and technology in washing and classifying as well. So, again, look for that here in the short days and weeks to come. We're also starting to look ahead a little bit to Mine Expo. That's a show that isn't necessarily at the core of our readership, but it certainly has a lot of value to us at the magazine. There are agri producers, crushed stone, sand, and gravel producers who venture out to Las Vegas, because a lot of our advertisers, the exhibitors at the show, they're still showcasing their latest wares. Mine Expo's, it's a big one, Jack, as you know, because that was your year one. I think it was your second month on the job.
Yeah.
That you got to experience Mine Expo back in September of 2021. So, there's new aggregates equipment that we want to be out there and see, and there will be some of our readers there, and we're starting to just now ramp up the coverage. You put together a piece, Jack, that you can read about in the August edition of the magazine, and we're going to have even more in September. That's a show that's going to take place September 24th through the 26th, again in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and we'll be out there. We'll have a booth, and we're hoping to capture some additional interviews for video purposes, for Drilling Deeper podcast purposes. And if you're out there, if you're going to be out there, let us know. We'd love to catch up and see what it is you're looking on and exploring on the trade show floor at Mine Expo.
Yeah, and feel free to, like Kevin said, let us know, reach out to us, whether it's that you're going to be at Mine Expo and would like to talk with us or be a part of Drilling Deeper, or even if you're just a dedicated Drilling Deeper listener and would like to let us know, what we can do more, what we can do better. You can reach out to us at jkopanski@northcoastmedia.net. That's myself. You can reach Kevin at kyanik@northcoastmedia.net. Just let us know what you think. Let us know if you're liking what you hear. Let us know if you're going to be at Mine Expo, and we'll see you out there in Vegas.
Well, episode 21 will be coming at you in a couple of weeks. I think our game plan here at the magazine is to share our interview with Peckham Industries CEO Damian Murphy and General Manager Gregory Peckham. They visited with me in recent weeks to talk about their 100th anniversary, and looking forward to sharing more of our visit with them with you here on the podcast. So we want to give one more shout out to our show sponsor. Jack, do you want to do our thank you to TCI Manufacturing?
I'd be honored. Thank you to TCI Manufacturing for sponsoring this show. Celebrating 25 years of excellence in 2025, TCI Manufacturing embodies the promise of concepts to reality as the industry's leading aggregate resource. TCI specializes in precision-engineered, custom-fabricated steel products committed to delivering top quality, strength, and precision in every project. Learn more at tcimfg.com. Thank you to TCI, and thank you all for listening or watching.
Well, that's it for episode 20 of Drilling Deeper. Thank you for engaging us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time, everybody.
See you.